Good morning from California. Hi, Natalia.
Hi, I was gonna say good morning. No, not really.
We're on the West Coast. Where are you located?
I am in Toronto, Canada. It's
Okay, okay.
a beautiful, crisp
Yeah.
fall afternoon already.
Oh, is it noon your time?
It's noon hour time.
Oh, okay. Have you had lunch?
I've had kind of late,
Brunch.
yeah,
Yeah.
late breakfast with this homemade banana bread that I'm really
Yeah.
proud of, so I'm good to go.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming to my channel. For those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Nancy and I'm a product management coach. I'm joined by Natalia today, who also used to be a PM or a PM executive, and now she is a executive coach. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Natalia.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I have a big passion in my heart specifically for product managers.
Why is that?
I don't want to offend anyone else who's in my network listening in, but I really think PM is one of the hardest jobs on the earth, and people don't realize that.
Why do you think that is? There's so much to unpack here. Two questions. Why do you think it's the hardest job? And two, why do you think people don't recognize that?
Whew. A quick introduction. Introduction. Um, I am an executive coach. I am a team facilitator. I transitioned from, I used to be in data science, then in overall management, then in product management and program management.
Mhm.
I transitioned into executive coaching, and I work mostly with high achieving leaders and
Yeah,
growing organizations,
yeah,
helping them, well, to elevate their leadership, but specifically build a highly performing, highly cohesive team. Restore that connection. We're often missing the connection, alignment to make sure the teams are moving with pace and momentum and they love working together and they're doing their best work.
yeah.
The way I ended up there is from product managers. And when I went on my own, so my last job was product management at a health tech platform. I started with resilience and mindfulness programming and coaching.
This is when you pivoted into
Right.
coaching? Okay.
Right. The reason was because I saw this problem of stress price, especially in technology sector,
Yeah.
right? Where it's so much, it's so VUCA, right? Like volatile, changing, uncertain,
And a lot of go, go, go.
and with pressure,
Yeah.
right? You have funding timelines, you have customer timelines, release timelines. Things never go as planned. I hope we all know that. And so I had a hypothesis of helping employees with their personal resilience.
Mm,
I would say the world we live in right now requires all of us to invest in a resilience tool set.
yeah.
And I want to repeat this again because people always think it's just them. Everyone else has this figured out. Everyone else, look at their social media. Look how great they all look. They all look like they've got it.
Yeah.
Then behind closed doors, and I'm sure you see this as a coach, I definitely see this as a coach. Everyone sits there, sobs, and says, why does everyone has everything figured out and it's me? So the one thing I say, it's not you. The
It's
list
every.
is quite overwhelming. All right.
Yes. Yes, I agree with that.
No, and our human body was not designed for it, right? So I've spent 2 years coaching individuals, especially PMs, because even
Mhm.
when I was in my last PM job, I had a PM community I supported, and a PM community I worked with in Toronto here,
Mhm.
and the General Assembly, we had a community as well through personal resilience. The reason I transitioned out of it, and it's still a part of my business, but not as big, is because I also saw that we have to solve two problems.
Mm,
There is a problem of personal resilience. Everyone needs to take accountability for what's going on, how the world is, and bring their best. But also, we can't use personal resilience as a band-aid solution.
mm.
also have to solve for organizational challenges and leadership challenges.
I see.
Right? So if I was to deliver a mindful leadership program to a product team, which I used to do,
Yeah.
yes, they would benefit from it. They'd feel like more in control. Every day they bring their best self. They're having better conversation. They're more level-headed. They're able to reframe, but they still can't succeed if there is no strategy.
Strategy in terms business strategy, product strategy.
Oh, product
Well,
strategy. For them, it's product strategy.
yeah.
There is no product strategy if there is no sound business strategy.
Yeah.
There's no sound business strategy if the leadership team is not talking to each other. There's
Right.
politics and silos. So I moved myself a little bit further up. I would say,
Mm.
more up the river to see where the bodies have flown rather than just saving the bodies down the river.
Yeah.
And so I do both. I still get hired
Yeah.
to do some of the resilience training and coaching.
Yeah.
Love working with product teams but any cross-functional teams.
Right.
I also love positioning myself, especially with leadership team, helping them restore connection and have the conversation that they know they need to have, because I know the impact will trickle down and will spike
Absolutely.
stress levels of everyone else.
What symptoms mean that this team is not operating at the level that it should be? So sometimes we might not even know we need help. But
Yeah.
if we pay attention to symptoms, then we would know. So what are some of these symptoms that you've seen?
Popular symptom is just this feeling of disconnection.
What does that mean? Feeling
Right? So
disconnected.
you feel as you're in the meetings
Mm,
and you think you hear and all the same things, but then when you see what others are doing and you do, and somehow you come back and you're working on different things.
okay.
That's a very common one when you're like, how did this happen? I thought we were all in one meeting.
Right. And is that more of a symptom after COVID, or it was always a thing, even when we were in person and not as remote?
I think there is a lot of this symptom before COVID as
Mm,
well, just because you have to remember what happens and what we hear are two different things.
yeah.
There's what happens, then there's our filter of perception that's impacted by what's going on for us, what we heard before, the conversation we get out, what happened at home that morning, our values, what we know about strategy, what we think is important, what we heard from customer, and this is what conclusions we walk out with.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone else might walk out with other conclusions. So there's always systems we need to be in place to make sure people are aligned, we're repeating, we're speaking back to each other, we're putting things in writing, we're all communicating. That issue was always there. But with COVID and hybrid work, it's definitely been brought into surface more.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So when the team is disconnected at the leadership level, how does that affect employees on that team?
I always say minor cracks in leadership
Yeah.
team and huge chasms in the organization. What you end up seeing a layer down is tons of meetings. That's your first symptom, by
Oh,
the way.
good one.
Things, yes. Because what happens layers down is, especially like product teams are very great examples. And I mean product development teams, so the
Mm-hmm.
trifecta plus engineers. Because usually they have their functional leaders. And so if their functional leaders are not
Yeah.
aligned, they come to the table with different agendas,
Mm-hmm.
and then they start escalating in it, trying to figure it out at the next level, and that level is trying to figure out. So that's a lot of conversations, and you realize that they need to make a decision and they don't agree on that
Right.
decision, and that's now it's pushed down to you, and you can't agree on decision, and when you're escalating is not being resolved, and so you realize it's actually at this
Got it.
level there's no common understanding, like are we pursuing engagement or acquisition, right? If that wasn't discussed at the leadership
Right.
level and you're pushing it
Yeah.
down, there will be a lot of swirl of the conversations, one escalating to another functional manager
Right.
happening at the same time. If the conversations are not being had of what's important, politics,
Right.
you'll see politics, right? When instead of people coming and saying two meetings, because again, I'm not against meetings, I'm pro meetings. But instead of coming meetings and having discussions,
Yeah.
debates to really think about what's the best
Yeah.
solution, you're starting to see a lot of people having a lot of one-on-ones.
I love that. Yes.
Still
Good call
have a
out.
one-on-one, yeah, but it's kind of like, kind of influencing the
Yeah.
agenda outside the team to kind of get to conclusion. Again, all influencing strategies are great, but for what
Right.
reason?
Right.
Is it because we can't come together and have a honest, open debate? That's a team dysfunction.
That's where a lot of back channeling happens, I feel. When we feel,
Mhm.
let's back channel this before we go into that group meeting. Yeah.
That's exactly it. When you're not seeing team have a healthy
Yeah.
debate where their egos are kind of ahead of the question of what's the best solution
Mm-hmm.
here, because that's what we should be debating and arguing about passionately
Yeah.
if you have to.
Yeah.
That's okay. With the goal of the best solution, you know that there is either mistrust or different goals. People are pursuing different goals, and we think we're on the same
Yeah.
page. We're actually pursuing different goals. That would be a symptom, and it will be it's very painful, and that's why coming back to stress levels, especially for someone like PM, it will be very painful
Yes.
because they often gets caught into
Yes.
resolving. So what is the
Yes.
decision?
Yes.
It's like, great, let me try to facilitate this
Yes.
25 stakeholders who actually never agreed on
Yes. And
this.
that's also when PMs might feel like we're not effective. We can't drive consensus. We can't get buy-in. We can't converge the team. There's something wrong with me. Or I'm
Yeah.
not good enough.
And
I'm not
it's
a good PM.
right. So that's actually brings us to the question we had, why PM is the hardest job. And you just got to the crux of it, right? Is PM is a very difficult
Yeah.
job because you become a leader very early on.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's a privilege,
Is it
right?
glam?
Is it glam? I don't know. If people realize what it is, they think that they get to just make all the
Correct.
decisions. But folks, this whole thing, you're a CEO of your own product, is a bit of bad marketing.
It's
Trust me.
incorrect marketing.
It's
Yeah.
incorrect
Yeah.
marketing. It's an accurate marketing. No, you don't get to just make all
Yeah.
the decisions. Before that, you spend hours and hours with other
Yeah.
people who have other pieces of information. And then you have to think really hard, and then you have to validate, and then you have to the data to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's exhausting. You have to constantly influence and build relationship without authority. You don't have authority of the CEO.
You don't. You really don't.
You don't. You're really far from the
I
authority
mean,
of
unless you're
CEO.
the CEO, but you're not the CEO.
Yeah, but generally not.
Right.
And the other thing, you really are the glue in a lot of things. And because you're the glue, so many things, when they fall apart, they have something to do with the glue,
Yeah. And
right?
what happens
And
if you're not empowered to even be the glue sometimes? Like you want to, but you're not empowered. That to me is one of the elements of PM that is really not glam.
no, and how do you wonder to be empowered? Like, do you find this during an interview? Like, what does that mean? How
Right.
do you know that the job you're getting, you will be empowered
Sometimes you
to make
don't know.
decisions?
Actually, it's very hard to know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's almost like till you think till you're in the job, you want to know.
There's probably red flags that we could all pay better attention to during the interview process. Do you have any advice or what's your perspective on that?
It's a very good question. I think generally, I think interview is a good place to really start thinking about, to start questions. How does the team make
Right.
decisions? Who is responsible for outcomes? What does the leadership hold accountable, the team accountable to? What would I be accountable for?
Right.
And to even ask what responsibilities would I have? what outcomes am I driving, and what problem am I solving? I think if the leadership can't articulate what problem you're given to solve, you can already kind of wonder how empowered this team will be and
Right.
whether it would be.
I had an experience where I made a comment in an interview, um, envisioning myself or any PM in the role to be captain of the ship. I was
Mhm.
basically saying my perspective on the PM role is very similar to captain of the ship. When something goes wrong, you go down with the ship.
Mm.
That's my perspective of the PM role. And then the interviewer, who is an engineering leader, said, actually, captain of the ship is engineering, is the engineering leader. I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting perspective. How do you see the PM role on this team? And then he said, the PM is the person pointing and navigating, but you're not the
Mm.
captain of the ship. I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's good to know. Like now that I know this in the interview process, I have a better picture of how this team functions.
And so, what does that tell you in terms of the role of being empowered or not?
Well, it means that this particular organization is very engineering driven
Mhm.
and that PM is a supporting function, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that structure, but it's good to have that clarity up front and know how that organization views different roles. And if PM is a supporting function, then you would know that you're not the CEO of the product.
Yeah. Well, that are interesting, and I think that applies to all cross-functional teams,
Yeah.
right? This idea of shared responsibility or shared accountability, right? If you really want to empower the product team, for example, or any cross-functional team that has multiple
Yeah.
legs to be successful, where does accountability and responsibility lie?
That's a hard one when it's shared.
It's very
Yeah.
hard,
So maybe it
right?
shouldn't be shared.
So what is that one? How does it apply then to accountability? Who is going down with the ship?
Who's the captain of the ship?
Yeah, but everybody, I think everybody's going down to the going down. I think that
Yeah.
what comes when people realize, again, coming back to teamwork here, is that you're all responsible. You're all going down. That's the
Mm-hmm.
thing. It doesn't you were pointing or you were cleaning or you were building or feeding or you were a sailor. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Everybody's going
Yeah.
down. That's the shared responsibility. The outcome the team is pursuing or the challenge they're solving, everyone is going
Yeah.
down. But what needs to be clear is that everyone have personal
Mm-hmm.
accountability to specific types of decision.
Right.
Okay, so example here is, again, applies to any cross-functional team, including leadership teams. If I am a head of marketing, for example, product marketing or marketing, I'm part of the team, then we are all responsible for this ship of the outcome, for example, solving a specific business problem. And I get input from all my coworkers, right, on specific channel for marketing, for example. But at the end of the day, I am responsible for making the final decision. Same with engineering
Right.
leader. They do need to consider what is going on with the design, what's the future aspirations for the product. They need to understand what customers want as well. They need to understand what their product managers thinking through, what's important for the product, hear all of their perspectives, but make sure they make the final decision of the product architecture, for
Mm.
example. Right?
Right.
So that because if the site goes down and the product goes down, you wouldn't call the whole ship. You do need a name to call.
Yes. Right. Right.
Right? And it would be engineering leader. And the same for the
Yeah.
product. If there's specific trade-offs you're making and why you're building X first and Y second, after you've done your debates and you've considered the value, the marketing, the business strategy, the technical implications, you have to make a decision.
Right.
And that now becomes personal accountability. So it's kind of like there's shared responsibility. The whole ship is going down. I love that alternative. Like it really is. The whole ship
Yes.
is going down. Everybody's
Yes.
going down, not just the
Yeah.
captain,
Right.
everyone. And you have to make sure that you're very prescriptive
Yeah.
at who is making what decisions and accountable for which decisions, right? And the same, for example, with delivery. Like if you committed to something that has a timeline, at the end of the day, who's getting a call when you're not meeting a timeline when it's an implementation?
Who decides all of this? Who decides the accountability? The org leader, the CEO?
It's interesting because if you think from a perspective of self-organized teams, it should be the team who is setting up a team charter when they're kind of kicking off and saying, so, some of it comes with a role,
Yeah.
right? As a tech leader, you often would know that and want to be responsible for at the end of how you build
Yeah.
things. But it should be discussed and it should be explicit.
Yeah.
There was an example that I've had in my personal life of the team is where we mapped out roles and responsibilities we thought we had on the team. And it was very eye-opening.
What happened?
Well, it happened where, for example, engineering really thought that they're responsible for the roadmap because it's so connected to implementation.
Okay.
Right? And other things where it's just like, wow, we really should have had just this conversation. But this is what you kind of like, no, roles and responsibilities should have been discussed right away. And if you can't agree, this is when your management or maybe your organization has prescribed kind of like RACI for the team. And I'm sure there's something you can share your expertise on specifically for the product teams.
Well, we have the RACI discussion when we kick off kind of like a big thing, whether it's a new planning cycle or when we're planning for the next big thing, we would have that RACI discussion. And the RACI is at a both high level and also low level. Low level meaning on the day of the launch, who is babysitting the launch? Like when this goes wrong, we have the primary person and the secondary person. And let's say we have to babysit this thing for a week, then who is on call on a day-to-day basis? So that's at a very micro level. And then we also have a macro level RACI, who is responsible for that. And then we always have a primary and a backup.
Right. And so what kind of responsibilities would be, for example, for a product manager? Or accountability, I want to say.
Accountability. So people say that PMs define the vision and define the strategy. That's broad strokes, right? In reality, what happens is, assuming that you're on a product team where everyone has an opinion and everyone is very passionate about the direction and about the product, then there will be a lot of opinions on the team. In that type of environment, PM is responsible for driving consensus and driving a single point of view and getting the team to converge, and then getting buy-in from 360 leadership, wherever stakeholders. That is what the PM drives. But in a different environment where the product team, including engineering, design, data, whatever, some of those team members might not really have strong opinions, or maybe they just don't care, or maybe they don't think it's their job. They're more quiet. In that case, the PM will have to, okay, this is what I think. This is what I think the direction should be. This is what I think the roadmap should be. In that case, the team kind of just chimes in here and there. Right. So then it depends on what type of environment the PM is operating in. and what
Right.
environment you would prefer also.
Right. So why is PM not a glam? I often say people come to me asking about product management path, and I do find that their the picture what they think PM is a lot more glam than it is. I want to really emphasize this because I don't want to see people in the wrong career. It's really hard. It's exhausting. It's demotivating. It really affects your self-esteem afterwards,
Yes.
and it's hard to recover.
Tell us more about what you mean by that. How does this role affect our self esteem?
Oh, does it? Again, because you have, again, so let's kind of go back to resilience as well, right? We are social
Yeah.
creatures. Why are we so stressed these days? First of all, like we live in the most well-fed, safe
Yeah.
society, statistically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we so stressed? One of the reasons we're so stressed is because we live in a very highly interactive environment with a big social
Mm-hmm.
element. And our brain thinks of things such as social interactions can almost the same danger as like saber-toothed tiger running at
Yeah.
us. So the one thing, the one acronym to remember here is SCARF,
Mm-hmm.
not the one you wrap around your neck, or we wrap around our necks here in Canada when it's cold. SCARF as like this 5 domains of human social experience.
Okay.
So it's status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness.
Wait, I need to write
Okay.
this down.
Okay. Status
Status.
is, yeah, that's where are you in relation to those around you,
Okay.
right? Certainty is about being able to predict the future,
Oh, okay.
right? It's like, can I predict the future?
Okay.
Autonomy is really that sense of control,
Mm.
right? Relatedness is really about the sense of safety with others,
Okay.
kind of friend rather than foe, right? And then fairness is perception of this impartial exchange between people. So when these things we feel are threatened, right? So for example, we're doing a reorg and we don't know where's our status going to
Yeah.
be. If someone in the meeting makes a comment in terms of like who's making kind of decisions here, right? Undermining your status. Or we have change coming, so certainty goes down. When these factors get impacted and we feel threatened, we literally, the system that gets activated in our body is fight, flight, or freeze
Right.
response. Same stress response as if we were to see the car coming and we're
Mm-hmm.
running away
Mm-hmm.
the side. The same
Yeah. Yeah.
response. And it also has another positive impact when you feel a
Mm.
reward. So meaning like, your status is going to be improved, or this gives you certainty over things, or, this makes you feel fair about
Yeah.
things, then we feel very motivated.
Okay.
You can use this formula for influence as well.
Okay.
But if you think about it, our general, like you're saying, driving
Yeah.
consensus, like in a consensus meeting, it's like discussing meeting with all your stakeholders. That's like 10 interactions a
Yes.
day. All of these factors is getting constantly threatened,
Yeah.
right? Because you just felt like you had the direction and you have the deadline tomorrow for sprint
Yeah.
planning to exactly what you're doing. And at 3 p.m., someone throws a curveball, basically saying, who are you to make this decision?
Correct.
And I've promised the sales, and I don't care about your roadmap, but you're putting this
Yeah.
in. By this time, you already had 5
Yeah.
conversations, bosses aligned and everything. At that time, your heart start
Yes.
racing. You start sweating like you're about to literally go fight a bear.
Yes. Yes.
Cortisol is up, your adrenaline is up because you can't meet the deadline. You start thinking about what your team, the team responsibility. You're not gonna have the backlog ready by
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow. Right now, they're gonna be stagnant. That's cost you $1 million when the team is not working on the right things. That all happens in
Yes.
milliseconds. But the thing is, you're literally experiencing stress response,
Yes.
multiple times per day,
Sometimes per
especially
hour, sometimes per minute.
per
Yeah.
minute, and always cortisol and
Yes.
adrenaline, right?
Yes.
And so when cortisol and adrenaline spike, we end up in this kind of overdrive,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we go home and we want to sleep and we can't sleep.
Yeah, I would like to ask the audience, how many of you get great sleep at night? I don't know. Let me know.
So for being a PM, right, or any like a lot of jobs are this way
Yeah.
right now because of this, frequent social
Mm-hmm.
interactions, right? Not to mention of all the things that happen in the world, right? Like the information that we are
Yeah.
consuming. We know too
Yeah.
much. Think about it this way. The amount of information we consume
Yeah.
now in one day is the same amount of information our human minds were designed maybe process in a year.
I heard of that. That's crazy.
Think of our empathy,
Yeah.
right? Like by the time we get to
Yeah.
work, right, we already read the
Yes.
news, of the war, of the hunger, of the politics, right? All
We
of
already
it.
responded to 10 emails
And we already responded to 10
or 10
emails and
slacks.
we already received some
Yes.
news. We're processing all
Yes.
of this. So the clarity of thinking is not there. We are, we are like our nervous systems are very
Yeah.
dysregulated. Because we don't get, that's another thing, like stress response requires us to have appropriate rest because during stress response our body only concentrate on most important parts of our kind of
Right.
biological system to run and fight and right, and so it doesn't give attention to things like digestion or reproduction and so
Oh
on.
my gosh.
The way we're designed is to fight the
Yes.
bear and then take a very proper long rest and digest.
Also, we're designed to do it together in a tribe where
Yes,
it's safe. And then we fight the bear together. But
yes,
oftentimes, the PM role makes it feel like we are doing this alone without any support. And that's not natural. That's not how
no.
we're designed.
No, and this is another thing, a very good lesson for both life and going back to the ship, right? If you feel like you are the captain of the ship
Mm-hmm.
and you're responsible for outcomes, not the team that's all going
Yeah.
down, you feel even more
Yes.
pressure, knowing
Yes.
and you're taking away an opportunity from the other leaders, your design leaders, your tech leaders to step up. And I've made that mistake myself. And I'll tell you, it's a very expensive mistake because you sacrifice your own
Yes.
well-being, kind of feeling as a hero, as you are the one who's going to be held
Yes.
responsible, and you start wrong team dynamic.
Yeah.
Instead of equal, kind of treating everyone equal, you kind of say like, I am a little bit more of a boss.
We have Andrew from the audience chiming in and answering my question. Andrew says, I sleep good because I'm usually done by the end of the day. Good for you, Andrew. That is amazing.
And that's the thing, we need to learn to disconnect from
Yeah.
the day, to reframe, and to remember that this is a job and you have a whole life. So that when those things happen, when those triggers happen, you can quicker recover in a
Mm-hmm.
healthier, calm mind. You can calm yourself
Yeah.
down to be like, no, no one is threatening me here.
Yes.
It's just a question of a
Yes.
deadline, and I understand that you have your own deadline. So likely the other person is under a lot of stress because they promised something to a customer
Yes.
and they feel like they can deliver. So that's why they're pushing hard. Let's take a step back. So it's important to stay calm and be able to insert a pause
Yes.
between the trigger and actually your
I
response.
feel like we need a part two of this conversation because we actually didn't get to talk about our resilience toolbox.
Oh,
But
no
that's
way.
okay because we can have a part two. Also, I want to thank Andrew for joining us live. And yes, I
Thank
agree.
you.
Natalia is very engaging and caring and compassionate. And that's why I want to do a part two to continue this conversation.
Let's do a part
Yes.
two. As you can see, I'd love every PM to have a resilient
Me
toolbox. And
too.
if I can possibly contribute to their well-being and happiness, or every leader, but especially PMs, as I said, very special place in my heart. It will be a privilege of mine.
You should write a book.
Should
I
I?
will read it. I'm sure a lot of PMs would read your book on the resilience toolbox because we know deep down that this is not glam. And we
Mm,
know we need help. We know we're not getting good sleep. We know we don't physically feel very good. And we know that we always have to be on, or we feel this urge, or we feel that this is the expectation. We're obligated to just be on all the time, even when our laptops are closed. We're still on.
mm.
Yeah.
Well, also don't forget a role of PM attracts certain type of
Yeah.
individuals
Yeah.
who are high
Yes.
achieving, who like
Yes.
the
Yes.
thrill of it.
Yes. And when everyone around you is like that, then you feel even more obligated to be on and be top performing and be, all these things and to thrive.
Right. Well, before we, just this SCARF acronym, it's good to remember for people knowing that the reason they feel stressed is because our body thinks of the threats and
Yeah.
social environment the same way as lack of food or lack of safety, right? So just that's already just reframing that and thinking, oh wow, this is just what's happening. This feels
Yeah.
uncertain to me, or this questions my
Yeah.
authority. Inhale, exhale. That's just all that's happening.
Great. Great
Reframe.
highlight. Yes. I love that. So for folks who would like to connect with Natalia more, scan the QR code and you can connect with her on LinkedIn and get to know her better. All
Awesome.
right.
We'll talk.
Thank you for coming to my live stream. We have to do a part two.
Definitely. Let's get to
Yes,
schedule
yes.
that.
All right. See you soon.
Have
Bye.